the question of, is Cornel West a spoiler candidate, or is RFK, a spoiler candidate, I think becomes an existential one for the Democratic Party, especially for Biden. If their ideas are conspiracy theories, if you think your ideas are better than them, why not open up the debate stage? And if for Democrats in general, not only defeating ideas that you don't support, ideas that I would generally support, that Cornel West would be pushing, but improving your own party and seeing if Biden can even be in a debate and win. Can he hold his own? Can he make an argument for the things that he's pushing and make people believe him? Because he's going to have to do that in a general election against probably Donald Trump, or maybe Ron DeSantis or somebody else. But no matter what, he's going to have to make those arguments on his own, on stage, in front of people. And I'd like to see him do that before the future of the country is on the line. And by that time, if you've still not dealt with Cornel West, he's going to be on that stage too. And I can see things getting really, really rough for Joe Biden if that's the first time he's having to debate, taking on the philosophical eloquence of Cornel West to his left and like the rigid insanity of Donald Trump on his right. That doesn't sound good for Biden at all.
Yeah, and I think but your question of like, doesn't the Democratic Party want to improve itself, and don't they want to, show voters that they care? I'm not sure that those are the interests of the Democratic Party. When you had Bernie Sanders running, that was an individual with a movement behind him challenging the Democratic Party, right? That wasn't the Democratic Party making decisions. And like in 2016, they did everything they could to keep Bernie from even competing with Hillary. And so the Democratic Party doesn't care about proving itself or making itself better. They are funded by the same people that fund Republican campaigns. They all parties support capitalism, right. The military-industrial complex. That's what they're there for. And so, no, I don't think the Democratic Party wants to improve itself. I'm sorry.
Norman Solomon, real quick, a couple episodes ago, Norman Solomon made the point that in his opinion, the Democratic Party, the power brokers, the money at the top of the Democratic Party, would much rather keep control of the party than win an election. And I think that, that's totally true.
Yes.
Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, that's totally right. And this is like, we're seeing this again. This is like the third cycle in a row where we see them just like digging in, like incurring this series of self-inflicted wounds where they're like, we're not going to deal with the left. We're not going to deal with other candidates who want to run. Like, we're going to coronate the person who we want at the top of the ticket. Everyone's going to fall in line because we're going to say, again, like, look at your other choice. It's so much worse than us, which is like true in, a broad sense and true, like specifically for groups of people in this country. But it just seems like this strategy is paying diminishing returns over time. Now they're stuck with like an unpopular incumbent. They're stuck with someone who, lots of people in the country have different concerns about for lots of different reasons. And like, what are they going to do? What's the long-term strategy here? They can't just keep writing the same playbook over and over again. So this is like largely a potential crisis of their own making, the party's own making, in just wanting to always keep the lid on, as you say, like, as Norman was saying, be in control of who's at the top of the ticket. Is this person going to like check all the right boxes with our donors? This is just like, this is their problem, I think. And they're going to have to figure out a way to either like win with a less and less enthusiastic base, which is going to get harder and harder, or the party's going to have to figure out a way to like expand and accommodate this. Or I think they're going to see a lot of potential constituents leaving or looking for alternative options, which is like a dangerous situation for all of us, right? I mean, we want those people to like come with us to the left, but having a bunch of like disenchanted voters floating around is always a really volatile situation, and you don't really know what's going to happen.
Right. And I think controlling the top of the ticket is one of the Democrats' primary interests. And you can see that from what Biden just did earlier this year, trying to maybe successfully moving the Democratic primary, the first state is now going to be South Carolina. At least that's his plan, and that's the DNC's plan. However, New Hampshire is not down for that. And from what I've seen, the Iowa Democrats are also still planning on holding their caucus as well. So South Carolina might be third. And because of that, this from Axios earlier today, Biden could actually lose the first two contests. He could lose in New Hampshire and Iowa because he's refusing to even participate in that. And that would hurt Biden for a number of reasons. Number one, hugely embarrassing for the sitting president to lose the first two contests to probably RFK. I don't see him winning New Hampshire at this point. It's bad in New Hampshire for Biden. I don't know much about Iowa. I just saw earlier today that the Democrats there were trying to maintain the caucus on schedule the same time as the Republicans will. So, I mean, if Biden loses the first two contests to RFK, I mean, it's a whole new race at that point. I mean, what are your thoughts on that possibility? Sam?
It'll be just like 2020 when he was fifth in the race at the beginning of the primary season. I mean, people forget he never did well in the primaries. You know, he did well in South Carolina, and then after that, the party leadership circled the wagons, and that's how he ended up as the nominee. Like, he lost these two. He wasn't even a significant factor in the first two primary states, or the caucus in the primary states. And it didn't look like he was on the table. It looked like it was going to be Mayor Pete versus Bernie. That's what people were like getting ready for, you know? And yeah, I don't know if he wants to repeat that and remind everyone about when he looks like he was going to be a complete also ran until he had this miraculous, you know, come from behind win that was totally orchestrated by party leadership.
Barack made the calls.
Yeah, he did. I mean, yeah, that's what happened, you know, and I don't know if he wants everyone to like remember that part of his last campaign, but yeah, it's going to be a bad look. The question is like, will the media report on this like, oh, these are, you know, silly contests and no one cares, or will there be some? I mean, you know, Fox News will be like, Biden lost, LOL. That's obviously going to be the take there, but yeah, it's more of a question of like, what will mainstream corporate media say about this, and how will people understand it? I don't really know. I don't know how it will be billed. But if RFK is like, you know, polling at 40-50% and he wins these first two primaries, it's going to be a serious question about why are we assuming that we know who the nominee is, and then we're screwed, because then we have to say, okay, are we going to just like, is RFK going to be our dude instead? Which I don't think a lot of us would be very happy about. So it could be a real disaster, you know, happening pretty early next year.
I don't see a world where RFK is winning debates and like,
right.
Is there, or excuse me, debates, states, but it could happen. And then what a disaster. Like, the Democratic Party is really setting themselves up for an entire clusterfuck this coming primary. Like, is RFK really going to win and like win these early states? And what does that mean? Like, he is an anti-vax conspiracy theorist and he's winning Democratic primary states. I mean, I think that's an indictment of our current state of Democratic politics more than anything.
It's an indictment of Biden, isn't it? I mean, it's saying, and I've brought this up before, the conversation of like RFK Jr. is a anti-vax conspiracy theorist, and Joe Biden opened up drilling in the Gulf and in the Arctic and is in a never-ending war in Ukraine and hasn't done any of the promises really he promised people and hasn't touched immigration. And, you know, the list is endless of things that Biden is screwing up or literally hurting us on. So like at some point it's like you're weighing, like India said a couple weeks ago, Sam, it's the fucking South Park giant douche versus a turd sandwich again. Like, everybody's wrong. Yeah. It's terrible options. We have the devil we know and the devil we don't know, and that's seems to be what every election is.